Simply stated, a lot of people, and they are becoming increasingly vocal, find the songs and the rock video performances that go with them offensive. Even if your tolerance for explicit language is relatively high, you're quite likely to find them offensive also. Our dilemma in focusing on the subject was this: how explicit were we going to get? Well, we have left out some of the most offensive material, but what's been left in, if John Denver and Frank Sinatra are your speed, is still likely to curl your hair. But understand, these songs are routinely played on radio stations, and if you have cable, more likely than not, your kids have already seen and heard what some of you will see and hear for the first time tonight. Zappa and the Mothers of Invention. His underground hits carried such classic titles as Susie Cream Cheese, Brown Shoes Don't Make It, and Call Any Vegetable, plus several with lyrics that we'd have trouble quoting. In the early 70s, Zappa and his group were banned from the Royal Albert Hall in London in a dispute over obscenity. Frank Zappa joins us now live in our Los Angeles bureau. And joining us in our Washington studio, Candy Stroud, freelance journalist and spokesperson for the Parents Music Resource Center, which is campaigning for a rating system for pop albums and tapes. Frank, give me a sense of limits. Are there any?
Well, first of all, I have to correct something you just said. The suit with the Royal Albert Hall was a breach of contract suit, not an obscenity suit.
Okay. Now let's move to the subject at hand.
Are there limits?
Yeah.
Well,
should there be any kind of limits?
Yes, I think there should, and those limits that you're talking about for sexual information for children are a matter for parents to decide for themselves.
So if parents want to have a better sense, something that in one form or another makes them better educated to make that kind of choice, why stand in the way of it?
Because what the PMRC is suggesting in terms of remedies for the problem are roughly the equivalent of saying, well, this man has dandruff, so we're going to cure it by cutting his head off. Their proposals are really dumb if you take away the aroma and look at the mechanics of what they are, and they're also very dangerous in terms of what they can lead to for violating your right to free speech, your right to assemble, because they want to apply the same ratings to live concerts, and the right to due process for people. For example, if you're a songwriter and you have a song included on an album that gets an X, and through no fault of your own, the album is banned from stores or the sales of it are impinged on in some way, you don't have a chance.
The analogy you draw is a colorful one, but why is it any different, for example, than rating movies and saying if you are below a certain age, you can't go to see such and such a movie unless accompanied by adult, and in some cases not at all, unless you are of a certain age?
Well, I think that in law, when they deal with matters pertaining to the First Amendment, that a lawyer told me this, that you're supposed to look for the least restrictive option. And in this case, the least restrictive option would be this: to realize that rock and roll is not written or performed for people with conservative taste. And there's no reason why the morals or the taste buds of somebody who's married to a DC superstar should be a model to impinge on the rights of people who are not children.
All right, Candy Stroud, you're a journalist in addition to being a spokesperson for this group, and I'm sure are also concerned about impinging on the rights of free speech. Where do you draw the line? Clearly not in the same direction as Frank Zappa.